Coming up on this episode of the Talking Mac podcast is going to be MacBook and iPhone plus all your latest Apple news. Stay tuned, you're not going to want to miss it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Talking Mac podcast. Sorry I'm not as excited as usual. I'm very depressed right now. Very depressed. But anyway, let's go ahead and start out with this week's Apple news. Apple news for this week consists of updates and a lot of other stuff as well. MacBook, MacBook Pro, MacBook Air gets an EFI update. Apple updated the EFI firmware for the entire notebook line, and they say the update fixes several issues to improve stability of the MacBook, MacBook Pro, and MacBook Air computers. Also, the iMac got an EFI firmware update 1.3 in addition to the MacBook, MacBook Pro, and MacBook Air updates. The iMac EFI firmware was updated to 1.3. Apple says that improves stability of the iMac computers. Now, you can download all of these software updates by going to the Apple menu and choosing Software Update, or by installing the downloader package, which you can see on our show notes at our website, www.talkingmac.tk. Also, the aluminum keyboard got a firmware update 1.0. Last week, Apple released an update for aluminum keyboards that ship with most of their desktop systems. It addresses an update issue where the wireless keyboard may repeat unexpectedly while typing, both the wired and wireless aluminum keyboard. So, you need to have macOS 10.5.2 before proceeding with that update. The third iPhone beta SDK is live. Good news, the iPhone developer boys and girls. A brand new SDK for the iPhone just went live. This is the release version of number 3. It's 1.4 gigabytes of an update. So if you're developing for the iPhone, go ahead, update it. And finally, Apple ships its Final Cut server now. Announced nearly a year ago at the 2007 NAB conference, Final Cut Server provides professional asset management with tight integration with Final Cut Studio. The product was originally scheduled to ship in summer 2007, but it's seen extensive delays, and you can get it for $999 and 10 concurrent client licenses for $1,199. This has been this week's Apple News. This week we're being sponsored by a great website. Now, as you know, our company here has an affiliate relationship with .tk. If you want a domain name, go to .tk. So, when I ran across a company that was willing to sponsor, they had to get a .tk name. So, it's bestmacdeals.tk. Now, what this website does is, this website it's like a product search, but it's especially for Mac. So if you type in, maybe you look for an iPod Touch, type it in, you'll see all the different prices of the iPod Touch, and you can click on them and see where they're from and see if you want to buy them. So we hooked them up with a .tk domain name, and that's .tk if you want a domain name as well for free. .tk. And so we hooked them up. So go to their website, bestmacdeals.tk. Now, this is not just for Mac deals. It can work for PCs, GPS systems, anything electronics. You can find it there, and you can compare it to shop right there from the interface. All right, let's go ahead and get on into Apple notebooks and Apple, all this Apple stuff we're going to be talking about today. Oh yeah, and you know the videos that we used to put up on Wednesday, we stopped doing it now. It's got its own channel. If you want to watch them on YouTube, it's youtube.com/Mac Tips and Tricks. And if you're in the Miro player or Miro player, you can type in Mac Tips and Tricks and find it there. And if you want to see the high definition version, go to mactipsandtricks.blip.tv. All right, mactipsandtricks.blip.tv or mactipsandtricks.tk is another website of theirs. All right, so Apple notebooks to see major design changes. Apple Insider claims that the current MacBook and MacBook Pro designs will be retired and are expected to see major design changes in their next revision. The consumer MacBook line is expected to transition from the plastic enclosures to aluminum and stainless steel, which are reportedly more eco-friendly. You know, Apple's trying to get to the whole eco-friendly stuff, so they can get what is that, Greenpeace Corps or whatever, so they can get them off their backs. They're, trying to make this everything green, because Steve Jobs green. It's something about green. Everybody's going green these days. I mean, even TV stations are going green. It's just greenorama these days. So The MacBook Pro will also share a similar design transition to bring it in line with the existing iMac and MacBook Air designs. Now, this is a quote from Apple Insider, though precise details are admittedly limited, given the ongoing revision process. It is presumed that this will include instances of matte black on portions of the case, and oversized trackpads, and the adoption of the MacBook Air's keyboard by the MacBook as well. Apple Insider points out that the MacBook has not seen a major case design since its introduction in May 2006, and meanwhile, the MacBook Pro continues to share a very similar design to the aluminum PowerBook G4, which was introduced in 2003. Now, these new designs are expected to accompany the Montevina platform launched this June. Montevina promises faster front-side bus speeds of 1066 MHz over the existing 800 MHz and slightly faster Penguin processors, 2.26 GHz to 3.06 GHz. I can't wait to see one of those 3 GHz machines in MacBook Pros. That'll be great. Now, I think you should be expecting to see this in at WWDC. I mean, this stuff, for all practical purposes, MacBook Pros are, they'll probably do like they did when they introduced the MacBook. They'll probably introduce it on a Tuesday, and Final Cut Server was last Tuesday, so this Tuesday they might introduce a MacBook, or on WWDC Tuesday they might introduce a MacBook, and then at WWDC introduce a brand new MacBook Pro with all this cool, great stuff in it, so expect that as well. Apple's developing full multi-touch Macs for 2010. Piper Jaffray's Gene Munster claims that Apple is working on a keyboardless full multi-touch Mac, as we all know, and they say the requirements lead to a launch timeframe of 2010. So, be looking for that. Apple's rapidly seeding macOS 10.5.3 test builds, and that security and maintenance release for Apple's Leopard operating system could arrive sooner than later if the company maintains its current cadence, which has seen 2 successive pre-release build lands in the hands of developers in just 5 days. On the heels of these first external tests build labeled macOS 10.5.3, build 9D10, and released privately last week, the Mac maker on Tuesday followed up with build 9D11, which adds nearly 20 more fixes and code corrections, and brings the new total expected with the software release to nearly 100. Oh yes, I can't wait. And there's been rumors circling around. Walt Mossberg, or Uncle Walt, said that he expects the iPhone to come in 60 days. Well, he sort of kind of took that back, saying he doesn't know when. And this is like the last episode, number 30. We told, don't get up and say, oh, iPhone, 3G iPhone in the next 60 days. You have not a clue what you're talking about. You have no inside sources. I mean, he's just crazy. Maybe he's just getting old. Well, I don't know. You don't get up in front of the whole. I mean, everybody was blogging about it. It was a hot topic. We're gonna see 3G iPhone in 60 days. Thinking this dude know what he's talking about. Besides, he gets the stuff from Apple anyway. He must know what he's talking about. He comes out and says, "I have no inside sources. I'm just as dumb as the rest of the world. We don't know when it's coming out. I don't know when. I was just making a guess to why they release it in less than a year. I think on the birthday of the iPhone, they're gonna release iPhone 2." iPhone 3G. That's what I think. It just makes sense. Uncle Walt, do your research, buddy. That would be greatly appreciated. Alright, thanks for listening to this episode of the Talking Mac Podcast. Remember, if you have any questions, visit our website. Email us. technifymedia@yahoo.com. We'll gladly take it there if you have any Mac questions or whatever. Check out mactipsandtricks.blip.tv as well, and check out our sponsor, www.bestmacdeals.tk. We'll see you there. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye. The proceeding has been a Technified Media Network